Welcome to the Innovation Squadcast. If you are looking for a podcast about instructional strategies enhanced by technology, you came to the right place. In our conversations, we will talk with tech experts, share ideas and strategies to help you build your toolbox with tools that you can use in your class immediately.
Welcome to Innovation Squadcast, and thanks for making us part of your educational PD journey. First-time listeners, welcome, and for our returning listeners, welcome back. We are glad you're here. We are discussing the Hour of Code Week, right? 2023, December 4th through December 8th is considered the Hour of Code Week. And the Hour of Code is a free 1 hour introduction to computer science using fun tutorials to show that anybody can learn the basics of coding. Coding teaches valuable skills for any future career and also builds work and life skills. It's an excellent way to learn soft skills like creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication that are important for our kids to thrive in the future. So this is a grassroots campaign that is supported by over 400 partners, 200,000 educators worldwide. And so in this episode, we will discuss ways that we can support this initiative inside of our district. But before we get started, let's pause for this week's Tech Tip.
How to make small groups. So from whatever page you're on, you're going to go down to members. And then once you're here, this over here, it's not real obvious, but it says organize members into grading groups. That's what they are calling small groups. So you're going to name your group up here, and you might name it the title of a book. So I'm just going to go with To Kill a Mockingbird. And I'm going to choose these 3 students and then create the grading group. Then when I go to materials and I add materials, I'm just going to make the folder first, and I'm going to call it To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm going to give it a date, and I'm going to create it. After I've created it, I'm going to go down to it, and from here I can choose individually assign, and I can do individual, or I can put, when I click on here, it automatically gives me the groups that I have already created. So this could be by mastery, or whoever needs help after a pretest, or it could just be the whole folder based on a novel. And so once I've done that, and I had to click off of it, and I'm going to hit next, and then I hit assign. And so now only the students that it has been assigned to should be able to see it. So if I go to that course option, view course as, and I choose one of the kids in that group, now when I scroll down, I can see that she can see it.
Hope everybody enjoyed the Tech Tip this week. I'm Jimmy Kate.
And I'm Nicole Lapointe.
And we are talking Hour of Code 2023, right?
Can I just say, we know Hour of Code is that first week in December all the time. But why is it so fast? Why did it happen so soon? We were like, Hour of Code is next week.
Exactly. And so, Hour of Code is here upon us, and we hope you will definitely do something during that week. You don't have to do a whole lot, but we really want, everybody in the district and everybody really worldwide to be able to, expose your kids to some form of coding. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a lot of different ways that's plugged and unplugged, resources that you can go to. So, we'll hope you will at least introduce your kids to some coding. Because it does have a powerful, and there's so many careers right now that rely on coding that you wouldn't even think about rely on coding, but it's also the skills that they learn from coding that they can take with them, I think.
And don't ever feel like, oh, my students can't do that. Because years ago in the classroom, when we did our first Hour of Code, I was like, oh, it's going to be hard for some of my students. I had some students who maybe didn't grasp on as fast. And I had a bunch of students that English was their second language. Mm-hmm. So here I am. I didn't know much about coding, and I was trying to explain it. Well, I had this one student who was an ELL, and he took off with it.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter. There was no language barrier when it came to coding. So, and that was fourth grade, but I've seen it done in K4 as well. So don't ever think like, oh, my kids can't code, because they can.
We have activities that will, for any level, from pre-K all the way through 12th grade seniors, that anybody can do that. And really one of the best places to go is to hourofcode.com or code.org, right? That's kind of where they created this initiative, and they have more resources than we could even go through, as far as what's on there when it comes to being able to create coding experiences in your classroom.
Mm-hmm. So when you go to the website, you can filter it through by grade levels. It's like K2, 3, 5. It breaks it down. So, and they even have some pre-reader ones.
Yeah.
So when you're exploring there, once again, like I said, don't feel like, there it is. I don't feel like, I don't know if my students will be able to do this.
You can register for the Hour of Code. You don't have to, though. That's just something if you want to do to support the initiative. If not, you can just, again, go here, find resources. They've got pre-reader, filters, grades 2 through 5, 6 through 8, 9+, beginner, people that are more comfortable. They've got different types of activities. They got different types of games. There's different types of technology. There's topics. There's, from dance all the way down to social studies and everything in between, computer science, language arts, you name it. If you are an educator, you can, in any really way, you can, support this initiative and do something in your classroom that can, support what you're doing in the classroom, but also build those coding skills as well.
And, you were saying as an educator, and we have a lot of educators who are parents. So if you're wondering, what can I do at home? What can I do with my own personal children?
Yep.
There's also a spot on there when you filter it, if as a parent, if you want to register, or what can you do and what are your first steps to get going with the Hour of Code?
Absolutely.
And then, it's called Hour of Code, but do you think it ends there?
Nope.
No, it definitely doesn't, because once you get these kids coding and realizing like how fun, how challenging, how cool, how creative it can be, then they just want to take it to the next level.
They do. Yep. And if you go to code.org, again, there's learn, there's teach, there's projects, there's more resources there, trying the Hour of Code, things that students can go to and find resources, things that educators can go to, and then, people at home as well. So 272 million code.org projects have been created so far. So this is an international really movement that, is just a really good, exposure for our kids to be able to get into something like this. And this could be, something that they really take to, and we've seen that over and over again, that, certain students that, struggle in one area, this is something that they could absolutely thrive in as well. So there's, tons and tons of activities. Again, go to our show notes. We've got all the different links to different places. Tinker is another one, tinker.com, Tynker, that has coding for kids and teens made easy. It's got a video, it's got, curriculum, it's got for parents, it's got, live classes, it's got for educators. So it's got all different, levels and exposures when it comes to resources. So definitely check out all the different resources in the show notes.
And we had mentioned, they can be as little as 4K doing coding.
Absolutely.
I like to do Puppy Adventure
with
the little ones. And it's a great place to start out. It's, step by step. It really shows you what coding is, how, if this, then that.
Right.
And it talks you through the steps. So even the little 4-year-olds who maybe can't read, it's telling you, and it's fun and it's interactive. The poor little puppy was left behind. So, it's got a puppy barking, and then the family, and then it reads it to you. So it kind of walks you through steps, and it really, it's scaffolding with the block coding, because it starts out with just the basics of block coding you need, and then it will add more. So if you're wondering where to start, or your kids are really young, then try that Puppy Adventure.
Absolutely. And then, speaking of littles, that's where BBots may come in. You're talking robotics. We've got BBots here. Some of your schools actually have BBots as well. And that is a form of coding. It's being able to, see where you've got to go, code your BBot using, backwards, forwards, left and right. and then trying to figure that out. And that's something that is, again, it's a really fun way to review math. It's where you use sight words, letters of the alphabet for young kids. And then it's also, just a fun way for them to interact with some kind of robot and do some form of coding. So yeah, definitely check out BBots and the resources, or again, reach out to your ILCs. We'll be more than happy to bring some BBots in and do some kind of activity with your kiddos.
So you mentioned, and this is probably a good time, you had mentioned plugged and unplugged.
Yes.
So when we're talking about plugged coding, that's connected to a computer,
right,
which is a lot of these that we just mentioned. And then unplugged is if you're not using the computer. And I've seen BBots used kind of like when you use the map for it and everything.
Yep, they're unplugged.
So just so you know, when we're saying plugged or unplugged.
Right. And then we've also got other robots that do coding. We've got Dash and Q. Dash does a great job with using block coding. It's got, you can easily do like the school where it actually teaches you how to block coding, or just give them challenges that we have in many schools. Again, you guys have Dash, but also reach out to your ILCs and reach out to us. And we'd love to bring Dash into there. And then you've used Ozobots a lot, and that's a form of coding as well. So
yeah. And Ozobots can also be unplugged.
Yep.
So you can code the Ozobots on Ozoblockly on the computer, or you can code it with the marker. It follows certain colors and certain coding sequences, and it will, kind of crawl across the marker that you have written. So those can be plugged or unplugged. And those are those little robots that the kids love.
Yes. So reach out to your ILCs, and we would love to bring some robots in. Again, it doesn't have to be next week. You can reach out to us and we can bring in those anytime, just to, again, support whatever it is that you're doing in activity, because they can go right along with standards. They're a great way for kids to review, different standards. I've done BBots with like multiplication tables. We've done some early subtraction. So there's lots of different ways to do that.
And it's not just for math and science.
Nope.
A lot of people think, coding or robots, I have to do math and science. No, we've coded the parts of the story,
Shout out to Miss Traverse's class at fifth grade class at Nexton. Learned how to code Dash, and then they wrote books using Book Creator. And then in the story, Dash does certain coding things, and then they act out that story using their robot. So so they're writing a story following that English, and language arts standard, but building in that coding and robotics too.
Same thing with one of the teachers did it with the wars she was studying, and as they got to a certain war, they had to code the Ozobot to do something according to the fact of that war. So it can be any subject.
So we got, again, resources in the show notes. We got resources beyond the hour of code for teaching courses with code for students of all different levels. So I can't definitely recommend enough. This is one of the show notes that you want to go to, because we've got all kinds of links to lots of different activities. And one that we just kind of discovered recently and all kind of surrounds is microbits. And that's microbit.org. And that's coding that you can do using little microbits. And we've got class sets of those that we can bring in. And there are, again, too many activities to even talk about when it comes to microbit. Check out the microbit podcast. I think it's episode 60, where we talk about microbits, but then even going farther along with that, and that's arcade.makecode.org.
Somebody had a little fun with that.
I did have a lot of fun with that. And what's really great about this, the teacher reached out to me, kids wanted to, make some form of arcade game, and makecode.org, arcade.makecode.org allows for that to happen. You can't, there's all kinds of tutorials inside of there to make games. And then once you learn that, I made my own version of asteroids, just using.
It was legit. It was like Atari and everything else.
It looked like old Atari, asteroid. It was crazy.
Bringing back 1980.
Using,
no, sorry, that was before your time.
using coding, using block coding. And you can do lots of different types of games with this arcade.makecode.org. Again, just started to get into it, but really, really excited about what I can hopefully, teach some kids when it comes to coding, to make something that's really fun that they can play, and then and really kind of take that to the next level. So, check out that website, check out microbit.org, and then also check out the Microbits podcast episode 60 as well. So. And then you loved your unplugged coding. I'm more of a plugged guy. So you're talking about some of your unplugged versions that you were talking about and some of the resources you found.
Well, even just, you're reading a book and you have magnets, or you have big pieces of paper cut out with arrows pointing. That's unplugged.
Absolutely,
So the students can kind of code the character to get back to, I don't know, the house or, whatever's happening in the story, but you can actually use these big pieces of paper that you can create, the kids can create. I'm sure they have some online somewhere, but that's unplugged. You're actually doing the steps to get from one place to the next. And it's coding without the computer.
And then what's great, we got a resource. It's Hour of Code Unplugged activities. They have, it's 23-page PDF. It has all the different ages that you can look through and find all types of different unplugged activities if you want to go that route when it comes to coding. We also have the CS Fundamentals Unplugged, which is, again, more resources to be able to, and lesson plans to go along with that. They've got little videos that go along with it so that you can do those unplugged activities, which are great. And they do the exact same thing and teach the exact same, 21st century skills and the 4 C's that we were talking about earlier. And then we've got another resource for 6 unplugged activities with Hour of Code that goes through more activities that you can do as well. So again, lots of different resources on the show notes. I think that's the key. Really wanted you to
get in there.
Get into the show notes. Take advantage of the resources that we were able to find and research, and just take a little bit of time. It doesn't have to be all an hour at one time. Maybe do a few minutes here or there. But get your kids doing some form of coding and watch how excited they are about doing it. And be able to, and watch them also develop some skills that, and see which kids kind of shine with that as well. So It's great.
And some computer lab teachers have reached out, what are some things you have, some ideas? And I always say, have you ever tried code.org? Have you ever tried coding with them? Those kids will run with it in there. So that's a good place for that as well. And we want to know what you're doing.
Yes, we do.
We have a Google form attached in the show notes, and it's super short and sweet. We just want your name, school, the grade level, a brief description of what you did for Hour of Code, and send some pictures. But please, please, please make sure that your students have permission to be photographed. So that's it. That's all you have to do on the form, because we like to showcase this.
And we can take it and put it into our Facebook, put it onto our Instagram, and highlight that. And give you a shout out on the podcast or whatever it is that we want to do. And if you're doing something that's, different than what we've talked about, reach out to us. We'll love to have you on the podcast and be a part of it, because we want to hear what you guys are doing and highlight and showcase what's going on, because it benefits everybody in our district. And that's what this is all about. So
right. And then we get ideas that we can bring to other schools. So
absolutely.
Share away.
Many of our ideas are a collaborative effort all the time with all the different, people that we've been working with. So again, reminder, check out the show notes for the resources, links to the podcast video. If you're listening right now and want to check out the video, definitely do that. Tech tip video, right? If you liked what you saw or heard, but you want to check out the video, there's a link to take you to our YouTube tech tip playlist, and you can find it there. And then Innovation Squadcast PD, Unified Talent, is doing really well. We're getting a lot of more buy-in with that. It's great because it's a great way to get PD credit for every 2 episodes. Fill out the Google form, and then you get an hour of renewal credit. So don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube so you get your notifications, or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, to get those notifications of new episodes. And like I said before, we want to hear from you. You got podcast topics, you want to be on the podcast, reach out to your ILCs. And we'll get in touch with you. We'll bring the podcast to you. You don't have to come to our wonderful corner of our Maker Hub studio, but we'll bring all the stuff to you, and we'll make the podcast happen, because this is, again, we want to highlight what you're doing, and we want to benefit all the teachers in our county. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you sharing your Hour of Code knowledge with us. Thanks everyone for listening.
December
4th through 8th, 2023. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.